What if your sense of smell affects more than just your nose and smelling? What if it were also involved in measurable changes in brain regions involved in memory and emotion and cognitive functions? What if someone's sense of smell can also be used to predict gray matter? And engaging intentionally with smell could actually change gray matter in your brain. Hi, my name is Jonathan from Memories, and I educate people through workshops and trainings on the sense of smell and how it can be used to impact neuroplasticity and improve brain health and memory. And so in this video, we're going to focus on the topic of gray matter. What is gray matter? Gray matter contains neuronal bodies, dendrites, synapses, supporting glial cells and blood vessels. And so an MRI can measure the thickness of gray matter, cortical thickness, and tissue contrast. An important word of caution here, in studies where we see changes in gray matter volume, especially increases, it doesn't tell us exactly what that gray matter comprises of, but we are talking about literal structural changes in the brain and in brain volume. In another video, I go into a bit more detail on a UK biobank study. This was published in Nature in 2022. This study examined 785 participants between the ages of 51 and 81, where between two of their brain scans, 401 of them contracted COVID. This gave comparison data between people who had COVID and those who did not. And importantly, all of the quite shocking results were still there even when you removed people who had serious bouts of COVID or had been hospitalized. So it applied to mild cases. Furthermore, the average time lapse was several months between having had COVID and the second brain scan. So what they found in these second brain scans with people who had COVID was a reduction in gray matter volume in several brain regions. This includes the orbifrontal cortex, changes in the parohippocampal gyrus, and other areas connected to the primary olfactory cortex, and a greater reduction in overall brain size and difficulty on cognitive tasks. Again, this is months after having had COVID. And so this is an area of continued study. In other words, how did the virus lead to these changes? What are the connections? Is it inflammation? Or is it due to a reduced sensory input during sensory loss, during the times when a person was sick? There remain a lot of unknowns. But the fact is, COVID probably impacted your brain more than you realize. And this isn't just about results after COVID. People with different forms of olfactory loss also have been found in studies to have changes in brain structure. What this can be seen to point to is that the brain functions in a use it or lose it kind of scenario. It fits a broader context in neuroscience that brain systems are influenced by how they're used. And so while COVID or other illnesses and conditions that lead to sensory loss will lead to changes in our brain, it also means the inverse, that doing sensory enrichment and stimulation will also lead to changes. So let's geek out briefly and go over some of the brain regions that are involved here and why they branch out further than just smelling. The orbifrontal cortex, or OFC. This area evaluates sensory information. It helps identify and judge odors, and combines smell with taste. This is a major secondary olfactory region, repeatedly linked with smell loss and recovery. The parohippocampal gyrus. This helps process context, where an event happened and how it fits together in a bigger picture. And this helps explain how odors can evoke such rich, complex memories and experiences. The hippocampus forms and organizes new episodic memories and is used in long-term memory. The thalamus, which is actually where all of our other senses get relayed through. Our sense of smell is unique in that it doesn't go directly to the thalamus. As kind of a central hub, the thalamus regulates information between the brain regions. And later stage olfactory processing impacts mediodorsal thalamus. The cerebellum, best known for movement, but also contributes to timing, prediction, cognitive coordination. So let's go over a couple examples of what's been found in studies. First, in some studies that involved smell loss, both post-infectious, so after getting an infection, and idiopathic, meaning smell loss for a variety of other reasons. These could be from concussions or changes in a person's brain. After doing between 12 weeks and 7 months of olfactory training, people in these studies saw increased gray matter volume in the hippocampus, thalamus, the cerebellum, the gyrus rectus, OFC, and precentral gyrus. In a study with healthy young adults, where there were 36 participants who did olfactory training for 6 weeks, they found greater cortical thickness in the right inferior frontal gyrus, entorhinal cortex, and both fusiform gyri. There are two newer studies from 2026, one of them showing that odor stimulation showed increases in the bilateral entorhinal cortex, showed increases in the bilateral entorhinal cortices and right hippocampus, and the other study showed increases in olfactory bulb volume. Although there are a lot of studies that need to be carried out on this, and some of these involved smaller sample sizes, there are patterns that appear consistently, again and again, when people are given brain scans and instructed to do olfactory training. Structural brain changes appear in areas involved with odor identification, attention, memory, contextual processing, sensory integration, and emotional and reward value. So at the very least, we're given consistent data showing the neuroplasticity of this part of our brain. Intentional engagement with it will lead to changes. And while it's quite common to think about exercising our muscles, how do you exercise your brain? Is it by doing memory tasks, reading, doing a puzzle? Engaging with sensory stimulation, and in particular odors and the way that they can stimulate brain regions, seems to my mind to quite literally translate to brain exercise. Engaging with odors will change your brain and is a great way to promote brain health over time. I'm really excited for some of the research that's been coming out on olfactory training and our sense of smell. Researchers are pointing to how doing something like olfactory training can build more resilience in the brain, and I'm going to do a whole video about this. Cognitive reserve, or resilience, is the brain's capacity to stave off pathology. Two brains don't necessarily react the exact same way to the exact same pathology. And so the choice is yours, but for my money, I'm going to be doing some brain exercises in the form of olfactory training. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.